My name's Chadwin, and I am a paramedic with St. Charles County Ambulance District. I have been here for just about 7 years now, and I have loved every minute of it. I went to school here, I worked part-time, and now I'm full-time, and I chose to go into this field because I was doing something else, and I wasn't having a lot of fun with it. And I talked to someone that was a nurse, and she loved what she did, and I thought, I don't know that I want to be a nurse, but a paramedic sounds pretty cool. So I went to school and I fell in love with it. And I have the ability to go to someone's house that's having a terrible, terrible day. Because if you think about it, most of the time when people call 911, it's a bad day. It's not very often that someone calls 911 for fun. They call it when they need help. So I have the ability to go to someone's house on one of, if not their worst day ever, and help them. Sometimes just a simple conversation makes them feel better. Sometimes I have to give them medicine to make them feel better. And sometimes I have to do special procedures to make them feel better. But regardless, my job gives me the ability to take someone who's having a bad day and allow them to have a better day. And to me, I think that that's fantastic to be able to help someone and to be able to leave the world in a better place than what it was when you found it is a beautiful thing. And this is a hard job. All jobs are hard in their own way. Some days are good, some days are bad, but ultimately I have more good days than bad days, and having the ability to help people, to me, is truly amazing. And I'm glad that I am able to bring joy to people on bad days. So if you ever are wondering what you want to do when you grow up, what do I want to be when I grow up, keep paramedic in mind, because we get to do cool things. We have some seriously cool toys to play with. We can give medicines, we can talk to people. It's a fantastic job, and it's hard, but it's fantastic. So if you're ever unsure of what you want to do, but you know that you like helping people, you know that you like making a difference, I think that being a paramedic might just be the job for you. Has anyone ever been driving around, you see the lights and sirens going off, ambulance goes by, whether you're riding your bike or you're in the car with mom and dad? Probably a lot of you have seen that. So in that ambulance, it could have been me that you saw that was either driving or maybe not. I was in the back taking care of a patient. So no matter what time of day it is, no matter what day it is, St. Charles County Ambulance always has a fleet of medics that are ready to respond to calls anytime someone's sick or injured. No matter the time or the day, like I said, we are always available to help you out. Now, as far as we go, we cover a lot of area out here in St. Charles County Ambulance District. St. Charles County has just over, actually I think it's 592 miles to be exact, how much area we cover with our ambulances. Now we've got stations that are scattered everywhere across the county so that no matter where you are and where we are, we can get to you relatively quickly. On average, we're looking at about 5 to 7 minutes. So you make that phone call, we're gonna come showing up fairly quickly. Now, the county's a little bit different than what some areas might be like that you're used to. So a lot of times out here, you're gonna see fire trucks show up with the ambulance. So we're separate. So we have all paramedics that are staffed on our trucks. And there's an EMT and a paramedic. So the big difference between the two of those is we both wanna save lives. We both wanna help people out in their time of need. But the difference between the two is that a paramedic requires about an extra year of schooling, a lot of extra training, and we can do a few cool things that an EMT can't. So St. Charles County Ambulance, we have all paramedics that are here to help you out. Now, whenever you call 911, like I said, a fire truck might show up as well. So some fire trucks have paramedics on them, but most of the fire trucks are firefighters. So you're always gonna get an ambulance that's gonna have 2 paramedics on it, and you're always gonna get a fire truck. That way we can work together. What one can't do, the other can do, and you're always gonna be safe when it comes to us. Now, you might be asking, when do I want to call 911? That answer is simple. Anytime you're unsure, if you're scared, if someone's hurt, always feel free to call 911. I would rather you call us and then us show up to the house and it not be anything big or serious. We'll just go home. Doesn't matter what time it is, even if it's 3 in the morning, feel free to call us. If it's nothing, we'll leave, we'll go back to the station. If it's something, well then we're gonna help you out however we can. So if you're wondering when I should call 911, if you're ever unsure or you're scared, always err on the safe side, always give us a call. Like I said, we're working every single day of the year, no matter what time it is, no matter what day it is. If you call, we will come to help you out however we can. So Always be ready to call if need be. Never be afraid to call if need be. And one of your local paramedics will be there to help you out the best that we can. So let's take a second to talk about personal safety, right? You always want to make sure that you keep yourself safe above anything else. Let's talk about gloves for a second. So if I were to ask you, when would you wear gloves? I think a lot of you might ask if you're gardening outside, or if it's really cold, the wind's blowing, it's snowing, you want to wear gloves, right? So I think that the common theme is that gloves are worn to keep your hands safe. We wear gloves in the same sense to keep our hands safe. So we put gloves on to protect us from germs, from dirt. Maybe people have saliva or vomit or blood or anything like that that's just gross. We wear gloves as well so that we can keep our hands safe while we're trying to take care of you. As far as gloves go, while they're a great thing, while they do protect your hands and they keep them safe, you want to make sure that whenever you take them off, if you get dirty things on them, you want to try to minimize what's on the glove getting onto your hand. So even though you wear gloves to stay safe, you're always going to want to wash your hands even after you take the gloves off, because washing your hands is going to help protect you just that next level. The gloves keep you safe. Washing your hands keeps you even safer. So if you were to get blood or dirt or anything on them, you're always going to want to make sure you wash your hands once you're done doing what you're doing. Now, how long should you wash your hands? The rule of thumb is happy birthday. Now, I know you all know happy birthday. So if you want to wash your hands the best that you can, make sure it's nice and thorough. All your fingers, the tips, in between, everything's good and clean. You're going to want to wash your hands really good and sing happy birthday 2 times. If you sing happy birthday from start to finish 2 times, that's going to make sure that your hands are super, super clean. Wash them off, get them good and clean underneath, and that's what you're going to want to do. So let's talk about bleeding control for a second. So I am sure that all of you have cut your finger at some point in time or another, right? Maybe you're reaching into the drawer to pull a knife out for mom to make some food for the night, or you're helping mom make food and you reach in there, pull a knife and you cut yourself, or you're riding your bike and your foot slips off your pedal and your chain comes by and it scrapes your leg and you start bleeding. I'm sure a lot of you have had that happen before. Now for bleeds like that, those aren't life-threatening bleeds, right? A little bit of soap and water, wash the area off, put a Band-Aid on it, and then you're back in business, everything's good, it'll heal up in a couple of days. Well, there's bleeds that are a little more serious than that. Sometimes people cut themselves very badly and they bleed a lot. And those are emergency situations, because if you don't stop that bleed, that person will bleed out, and then it's just a series of events that are all bad. But we can prevent that. So for a life-threatening bleed, the first thing you want to do is try to put pressure on it. If you have gloves, it's always a smart idea to try to glove up, but sometimes you're not going to realize that you got a pair of gloves in your back pocket to put on real quick. So if you have gloves, put them on. But if you don't, grab a towel or an old shirt or anything that would potentially soak up that blood, and you're going to push it on there, and you're going to push really hard, and you're going to hold pressure, and hopefully it stops. If it doesn't stop, you can put another bandage or shirt or anything on top of it and continue to push hard. If a cut is bad enough that putting pressure on it doesn't stop, you're going to need a tourniquet. I'm sure a lot of you probably don't have tourniquets at your house, and that's okay. But things that you could use for a tourniquet would be a shoelace potentially, a belt. You could use an old t-shirt, and the big thing to do for that is you're going to wrap it around their arm and you're going to tie it in a knot and you're going to pull really, really tight. And that's going to put a little bit of extra pressure on above the injury. Always put the tourniquet above the injury. So if I'm hurt right here, I'll put a tourniquet up here. So I'm going to hold pressure on this. I'm going to have my mom help hold pressure, and then I'm going to take a shirt, tie a shirt around here and pull it real tight. Anytime bleeding is really bad, always call 911. But the things that you can do to help slow down that bleed is going to be putting pressure on it, holding pressure on it, and then putting a tourniquet on, or some sort of a device that would work like a tourniquet. Like I said, a belt or a shoelace, a shirt, a big long sock, wrap it around there, tie it tight, and keep holding pressure on it. Always want to try to stop the bleed, always going to call 911. Sprains and fractures. Have you ever, let's say, maybe did a somersault, or you're jumping on a trampoline and you come down and you land wrong, and then all of a sudden your ankle starts hurting? That's very common with kids in gymnastics and certain sports where they get ankle and foot injuries. So anytime you sprain or you strain one of your a part of your body, the best thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to stabilize it, right? It's going to hurt really bad. So if it's your ankle, you're not really going to be able to just walk on off the field like you normally would. So to stabilize an injury, you have to show it some support. So if I'm hurt, let's say that I hurt my knee and it's hard for me to move my knee. To stabilize my knee, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to support it above and below. Wherever there's an injury, you always think above and below. So for my knee, for example, things that would help stabilize it might be, let's see here, sticks. If there's like 2 big sticks outside, I could put a stick on each side of my leg, and then I can wrap socks or towels or anything around it that would keep my leg straight, and it would prevent it from moving as much as possible. You know, if I hurt my elbow, moving your elbow around is going to be painful. So to support my elbow, we could use like a sling, and then it would rest my elbow in the sling. Or if I hurt my forearm, think above and below. We could take like a magazine. You guys probably have magazines at the house, right? I could rest my arm inside of a magazine and wrap it around it. And then you could even put tape over the top. Something simple. The smallest things can provide the most comfort to you. So if I hurt it in the middle, I could put a magazine around it and then put tape on top of it. And that magazine's going to give it some structure from the front and the back. That way it moves as little as possible. So for strains and injuries, you're always going to want to do something to support it. Maybe put a pillow under your leg if you're in the car going to the hospital. Some sort of a bandage that would take pressure off of an area, but supporting above and below the injury is going to be the best thing for you. And then clearly try not to use it, because if you use that hurt arm or you try to walk on your hurt leg, it's not going to feel good. So support above and below. Try not to use it. Call 911 if you have to, but you're always going to want to get it looked at. So calling 911 is probably going to be your best bet. Let's talk about burns for a second. Anyone have any idea on a way that you might get burnt? So a lot of common ones happen in the kitchen. Whether mom and dad are running hot water to make some macaroni and cheese, the water's too hot and you put your hand under it. Maybe you're going to move the pot off of the stove and you touch the burner. Maybe you touch the pot. So it's real easy for people to get burnt if they're not super careful. So in the case of a burn, if it's a minor burn, like a little one, like you touch that hot pot, it's okay to put your hand underwater and run cool water under it. That's probably going to be one of the best things for you. It's going to be okay to put a bandage on it. You can put gloves on if you want to tend to it, but a lot of people do things that don't need to be done. One of those things that does need to be done is putting ice on it. Grandma might have told you, hey, go put some butter or mustard on it. I know that sounds silly, but I can assure you that my grandma used to tell me to put mustard on my burns. And that's just not something that we do anymore, right? You really don't want to apply any ointments to it or creams or gels. You want to kind of let that burn rest in its state, cover it, and then if you're worried about it, you are more than welcome to call 911. We can come over and check it out. Sometimes they require transfer to the hospital for a higher level of care, but just for them basic burns, helping mom and dad cook, you touch the pot, maybe you get a little blister on your finger, kind of like I have a blister on my finger because I got burnt over the weekend at a bonfire, so be very careful around bonfires. But if you get burnt, it's probably going to blister up, a little bit of cool water, cover it with a wrap, and you're good to go. If it's any more than that, or it's burnt really bad and all the skin's peeling back, always call 911. Let's talk about nosebleeds. Nosebleeds can happen for a lot of reasons, right? Maybe allergies are super bad. Maybe you slipped and fell, or you're playing sports and you got hit in the face. Nosebleeds happen all the time, and it's a pretty simple fix. So if you take your fingers and then you squeeze up top real high, you're gonna feel that bone in your nose is super hard. If you work your way down just a little bit, hear how my voice sounds really funny now? That's where you wanna go. If you take your fingers and you pinch real hard right there and you lean forward. A lot of times people would say, lean your head back and pinch your nose. You don't want to do that, and I'll tell you why. If your stomach hates anything, it's blood. So if you pinch your nose and you tilt your head way back, that blood from your nose is gonna run down your throat and it's gonna go right into your belly. And I promise you, your belly will not like that. You're gonna get sick and you're probably gonna throw up. And you probably don't wanna do that because you're not gonna like that either. So to make that not happen, pinch your nose real tight, pinch it so that your voice sounds really, really funny. And then you're gonna lean all the way forward and you're just gonna hold your nose, pinch it as tight as you can and lean forward. Now, some blood's probably gonna run out or it's gonna drip out. That's okay, don't worry about that. Just remember, lean forward, pinch really hard, and hold it. Don't smash a bunch of cotton up in there. Don't stick towels up in there. Don't slam your finger up in your nose, even though I know picking your nose is fun. Don't do that. Hold your nose, lean forward, and the blood will stop on its own, but do not tilt your head back because it'll all go in your belly, and that is not good, all right? If you have gloves, put your gloves on. But if you don't, it's okay. And always remember, when you're done, always wash your hands. If you're unsure, call 911. All right, so here's a few general rules for you that you should take away as far as illnesses go. There's a special consideration that you should think about, and one of them is an unconscious patient. You always want to make sure that you're safe. Above all else, make sure you're safe. So if you see someone, let's say for example, laying in the middle of the road, that's probably not safe. You wouldn't want to run out there and help them out. So scene safety is always going to be number one, all right? Ask for a parent or a big brother or someone if you think that something's weird or unsafe. That way you can always stay safe. So if you find someone that's unconscious, what unconscious means is that they don't wake up whenever you try to wake them up. Whether you shake them real good or you're yelling at them and they're not waking up, that's unconscious. That's always going to be an emergency. So if it's a friend, a family member, a teacher, doesn't matter who it is, if you find them unconscious or if you're talking to them and they become unconscious, that's a big problem. You're always going to want to call 911. So that's the first thing. Another one is there's some serious life threats that people may or may not have as they get older. So if someone's having chest pain, that's a big deal. If someone's having chest pain, that's a potential emergency. You're always going to want to call 911 anytime someone's having chest pain. If someone's having a difficult time breathing, like, you know, if you're running around playing on the playground, whenever you're done playing on the playground, it's kind of hard to breathe. That's not that big of a deal, right? You're just out of breath from running around like a crazy kid that you are. But if you're at home and all of a sudden your mom starts having a hard time breathing and she's not doing anything, she's not exercising, she's just sitting there and then all of a sudden she can't breathe, that's a problem. Again, you're going to want to call 911. And if you're talking to someone and they start talking really strange or they're not making any sense or all of a sudden they stop talking in the middle of a conversation, that would be weird. That's not what we normally do. Also, that could be another serious issue, right? They might be having a stroke. So difficulty breathing, chest pain, and then symptoms that you might think of when someone having a stroke, and that's like a little bit of facial droop, or they seem really super confused. They're just kind of looking around. They don't really know who you are, what's going on, or if they're just not making any sense. Like, hey, grandma, how you doing today? And she says, I really want a pickle. Man, I love pickles. I'd want one all the time, but that doesn't make sense, right? It's not an appropriate question. So anytime someone starts talking strange, definitely a medical emergency. And then one thing that you can look of is a lot of people wear necklaces or they might have a bracelet on or something that's an identifier that says this person is diabetic or this person is allergic to bees. Because sometimes a necklace or a bracelet can really give you a good idea of what's going on. They might have medication on them that they can instruct you on how to help give to them. But regardless, anytime there's a situation where you feel unsure or scared, always in a medical emergency, always call 911. So we're going to talk about some environmental emergencies, and I'm just going to run right through them. So here we go. So the first one I want to talk about, hot and cold emergencies. Super simple. You're going to do the opposite of what's going on. So if it's super hot outside and someone's they're feeling sick, they're feeling weak, they look real sweaty, or even worse, if they're to the point that they're outside all day and they're not sweating anymore, you're going to want to get them out of the heat and into the cold. You want to do the opposite. So bring them inside a car that's got air conditioning going, bring them inside a house that's got the air conditioning going, at least move them out of the sun into the shade under a tree. You can put some water on them and try to cool them down, but the big thing is you want to get them out of the heat and into the cool, and you're always going to want to call 911. That's going to be the theme. You're going to hear me repeat that all the time. Next one's going to be cold emergencies. So when someone's super, super cold, let's do the opposite. You're going to get them into a warm environment. So we'll get them out of the snow, back into the house, right? You're going to get them into a barn or a building or a car that's got the heat rolling. You're going to put blankets on them, try to cover them up and try to re-warm them up, because opposite of cold is heat. And when they're really cold, we're going to want to heat them up. One thing you do got to remember though is like frostbite. Do you know what frostbite is by chance? If not, frostbite is basically when a person gets so cold that a piece of their body becomes injured. And it's normally going to happen to like your nose, your fingertips, or your toes, because those are going to be the most sensitive and kind of most exposed. Your ears usually get pretty chilly too. If someone's got frostbite, just kind of leave it alone. And you'll know that they have it because it's really discolored. It's kind of creepy looking. But we're gonna leave that alone, right? Don't do anything special to that. Otherwise, blankets are what you're wanting, out of the cold, into the heat, and call 911. If someone gets bit by a tick bite, the cure to that is to get the tick off of you. And what you do is you'd have mom or dad, they're gonna grab tweezers, they're gonna pinch it right behind the head, and they're gonna pull it straight up, kind of like a tent, because you wanna make sure that the head comes off of the skin, right? Another one is going to be an insect sting. If you get stung by a bee or any other kind of insect that might leave a stinger on you, it's important to take a credit card and just kind of wipe it away. You don't want to try to pinch it to pull it out, because if you pinch it, you might accidentally push it further into your skin, or if it's a bee, it might put a little bit more venom into your skin than what you need to. So if you use a credit card and just kind of flick it away, that's gonna be your best bet to prevent any more injury to yourself, but also get the stinger out as safely as possible. A snake bite's another one that's super serious. Because we live in Missouri, there's a lot of snakes that are venomous. So the big rule of thumb is you want to leave that injured part alone. Always gonna call 911, but if someone gets bit in the leg, you're not gonna wanna put a tourniquet on it. You don't want to try to suck the blood out or the venom out. That's like an old school myth that a lot of people used to think was how you're supposed to take care of a snake bite. But you don't wanna do that, because if you do any extra damage to the injury, the way your body works is you could accidentally cause more harm. So if someone's bit by a snake, it's okay to cover it or put something on it, but you don't want to try to squeeze the area to protect the venom from moving, or a tourniquet, anything like that, because you're trying to do good, but you're accidentally going to do harm. So you definitely don't want to do that. And those are going to be your quick takeaways. You're always going to want to make sure that you monitor for allergies, like bee stings. A lot of people are super allergic to bee stings. So keep in mind that they might have a hard time breathing, or their arm might swell up, things like that. So in an emergency situation, always call 911. Shock is something that's a little different, and I'm gonna kind of explain it to you. Basically what happens with shock is if someone's injured, they get to a certain point in the process where their body starts to act a certain type of way. Have you ever been super scared and you just kind of froze for a moment because you got scared so bad that you didn't really know what was going on? Well, that's kind of like a form of shock, right? Your body freezes, you don't really know what's going on, your body's kind of doing its own thing and you're not sure what it is. So shock is, let's say that a person gets super cold. Remember how I said you want to take them out of the cold and into the heat? At a certain point, they stop shivering, they stop shaking, they're not talking, their teeth aren't chattering. That person is kind of going into shock, right? So for shock, you always want to remember to try to, if you can elevate their feet a little bit, kind of have them at an incline, that's a good thing. But most importantly for shock, you're always going to want to call 911. You want to try to keep them warm, put blankets on top of them, and you want to get care as soon as possible. So at any point, if someone starts acting differently or not responding to you like they normally would, shock is a potential issue. That is a serious emergency. Call 911. Another emergency is a seizure. Does anyone know what a seizure is, or have you ever seen one before? Some of you might have. So a seizure, basically what happens is a person will lose control of their body. Most of the time they fall down, but they might be laying on the couch or in bed. But a seizure, that person starts shaking really badly, like they're twitching, they're moving, they're not in control of themselves at all. And there is a chance that they could hurt themselves whenever they're seizing. So the things I want you to remember is if a person has a seizure, you always want to call 911. It could be due to a medical condition. A lot of times diabetics have seizures, and a diabetic is someone that has to control their blood sugar. If it gets too low and sometimes too high, they have a seizure, right? And so to fix that, we need to get them sugar. Other people require other types of medical help, but a seizure is always an emergency. So you're always going to want to call 911. So if you notice that someone, you're talking to them and then all of a sudden they stop talking, they start shaking really badly, we're going to call for help. So things that you can do to help in a situation like that. There's some old myths that we don't go by anymore. So a lot of times they think that they're going to swallow their tongue. Well, that person's not going to swallow their tongue. So they might try to grab it and pull it out. You don't want to do that, right? Because a person has no control of what's going on and they might bite your finger. So follow up, you never want to put anything inside their mouth. So if you put your finger in there to try to hold their tongue, you might get bit. You don't want to hold them down and like put a stick in their mouth. That way they don't chatter their teeth and break their teeth. Those are things that you're not going to want to do. The best thing that you can do for a patient if they're having a seizure is clear the area around them. So if they're on the ground, I'm gonna move the couch back. I'm gonna push the lamp out of the way. I'm gonna put a pillow next to them. If you can roll them onto their side, that's a good thing. So like I said, the best thing that you could do is potentially roll them on their side, clear everything out of the way so while they're shaking, they don't bump their head on a table or they don't knock over a light and then the light break and the glass breaks and it's just potentially all bad. So the best thing that you can do is call for help right out of the gate, move everything out of the way. That way when they do seize, they stay safe, and never put your hands or anything else inside that person's mouth. So just to wrap that up, the best time to call 911 is anytime you're unsure. We talked about a lot of things today, and I don't expect you to know all of those things. I don't expect you to have the skills of a doctor or a nurse or even a paramedic, but one thing that you do have the ability to do is call for help. Never be afraid to call for help. You're not wasting anyone's time. No one's gonna get in trouble, right? If you think that you need help, what are the 3 numbers we call? 911. Never be afraid to call us because like I said, if we show up and it ends up being no big deal, then it's no big deal. We go home, everyone goes back to doing what they're doing, and everything is okay. It would be a shame for you to not call 911 because you think that you're gonna make someone mad and then someone gets hurt. We don't want that to be the case. So anytime you're ever unsure, if you're scared, if you're alone and you don't know what to do because someone needs help, call 911. We'll always come, we'll always help. And if you don't need help, well then we just go back to doing what we were doing beforehand.